In this tutorial in Cyberlink PowerDirector, we're going to look at how you can customize your timeline track setup so you can adapt it to any particular project or your work style in general. On track number 1, you see I've placed 3 different video clips. They're all in a workplace situation. I'll stop that, and what I'd like to do is show you some of the things that you can do with the timeline. First of all, one of the ways in which we often scroll up and down through the timeline is to use the bars on the right side to expose all the timelines or the length of them by using the one at the bottom. You also have 5 dots between the preview screen and the timeline screen. If you hover your mouse over that, you'll have a double-headed arrow. You can drag up and occupy about 75–80% of the screen with the timelines. So this gives you a way to see all, or at least the top part of those that are there. You can have up to 99 timelines in PowerDirector. Most of us won't begin to use that many, but we'll show you how to add, subtract, activate, and deactivate some of the timeline tracks that you find here. The default in the newest version of PowerDirector is to have 6. Each is paired with a video track and an audio track. You can also change the height of any of the tracks individually or collectively. If you want to do some collective change, you need to move your mouse into the left panel where you have the number followed by the 3 icons. If you right-click there, you'll have the option to adjust the video track height or the audio track height to small, medium, or large. The default is medium for both of them. Let's take the audio track and make all the audio tracks small. I simply click on the word small, and now every audio track in my entire project is shrunk. If you want to change any of them individually, either larger or smaller, you simply move the mouse to the bottom edge of that track, hold the left mouse button, and you can make them shorter or taller according to your preference up to a certain limit. So that's how you can adjust for that. If you want to change them back collectively, you simply right-click again, change audio or video track height. Let's go back to audio, and we'll make them all medium again, and now I've adjusted them collectively. The other thing we often want to do is we want to stack objects one upon another in our tracks. Let's say we want to have this video in the media room. I'll take and drag it down and put it in track number 2. And as we see, because it's in a higher numbered track, it overlays things in a lower numbered track. I'm going to enlarge the preview screen a bit so you can see that. I'm going to take and shrink that video so you can see indeed it overlays what's on track number 1. That's called the stacking order. And if I put something in front of it on track number 3, I'll take this graphic image, that will indeed overlay what's on track 1 and 2. So here we see evidence of our stacking order, 3 on 2 on 1. Now, if you find this not intuitive because it looks like you're stacking upside down, you can change the default stacking order. To do that, you click on the gear in the upper right corner. That gets you to your user preferences. And then you click on the second option from the top, which is editing. Click on the editing option, and then about halfway down you have a checkbox, reverse timeline track order. I'm going to click on that and click on OK. Now it doesn't move any content in any tracks, it just inverts the tracks. So now track 2 is on top of 1 and 3 is on top of 2. It doesn't change the way it looks, but if this is more intuitive for you, it's a very easy way to make that change. I'm going to go back and put it back to the default in PowerDirector for those who work with the default settings. There's also another way in which you can simply add tracks. I'm going to right-click, and I don't have to be in the section on the left here, and I'm going to click on the option that tells me I want to add tracks. That will open up my track manager. Now the default is to add 1 video track and 1 audio track and no effect tracks. Now you notice by default we no longer have any effect tracks in our timeline. You can change any of the numbers of any of these 3. For example, right now I'll just say I want 0 video tracks, maybe add 1 audio track, and I'll add 1 effect track. And you can take a position where you want to cause them to come into your timeline sequence. I have all these options here. Let's say I want the audio above track 3, and I'll keep my effect track above track 2, and I click on OK, and it simply added those tracks. Now the effect track is important because there's sometimes when you want to apply an effect to a track by itself. And when you want to do that, you need to create an effect track. Now what can you place in each track? Well, the effect track is only for effects. The video track is where basically everything but audio goes. Your titles will go here, and you'll have your other elements in your project. Your graphic images will go here. Almost anything goes into the title track except audio or effects. So that's an easy way to keep them apart. Now, if you're editing and you want to focus on one track, there's a way to do that. If I right-click, I can choose the option that says Enable Selected Track Only. If I click on that, I'm going to find that because track 1 was highlighted, both audio and video, that the other tracks have this X through the eyeball, which means they are now rendered as inactive. And you notice I have my playhead here in the section where I have other things layered on top of it, but I don't see them because as long as they're inactive, I won't see them at all. So I can just focus on my editing on this track without worrying about other things that are related to it. You can also manually turn any track on or off by clicking on the eyeball. And now I'm going to see that I enabled track number 2, so I see that, which is stacked on top of it. And if I want to see this one, now it's stacked as well. There's another collective way in which you can modify the track structure. We'll give ourselves maximum room here. I'll right-click, and you can also click the one that says Mute All Audio Tracks. So if you're editing and you don't need any audio at the moment, you click on that, and it will automatically mute every audio track that you simply have. To undo that, you right-click, and the only option you have is Enable All Tracks, and now they're all active, and none of them are muted. The other thing that you can do is you can copy a track. Let's assume that for some reason I want everything in track 1 copied to a different track. I highlight the track, right-click, and choose Copy Content to. Then I pick where I want it. Let's do below track number 2 or above track 3, same difference. I click on OK, and now it's copied. Now if I had other content to the right out here, it would copy everything on the track, not just what necessarily is on the visible part of the screen. But that's a very easy way to do that. If you right-click again, you're going to see that we have some other tracks that we can turn on or off that are by default off. The SVRT track is one of them, and that's the one called Smart Video Rendering Technology. It suggests which video profile will work best for you in rendering. I can also turn on a chapter track where I can put chapters in my project. Then I can also turn on as well, if I want to, if I right-click, the subtitle track. And with the same right-click, I can turn off all 3 of these tracks. So I'm going to do that right now. I like to have as much space possible for the tracks that I want to work on. And so these are some of the options that you have. You also have one, I'll click again, to dock and undock the timeline window. If I click on that, now it's undocked, and I can change the size of it, the location of it. If I'm using multiple monitors, I can move it to a different screen, and so this undocks it, so it's flexible for me. To redock it, you simply click on the icon in the upper right corner, and it will lock it again into the default interface. So these are some of the ways in which you can make modifications. There's one I have not mentioned yet. We'll give ourselves some more room again. You can right-click, and you can click on Remove Empty Tracks. And so that will remove tracks. You will never have less than 3 tracks in your system, but that will remove empty tracks. And so let's empty one more track. I'll delete this. On track 2, right-click, and I'll do Remove Empty Tracks again. And you notice I've got my 3 tracks, and it's not going to undo anything on tracks 1, 2, and 3. Let me remove the item in track 4 and try it again. Right-click and do Remove Empty Tracks. And notice track number 4 could be removed. So that will simplify it if you add elements to tracks over and over and then decide that you've got too much empty space. It can simplify your project. Another thing to remember when you're working with tracks is if you click on the icon to view entire video, it will shrink the entire video from beginning to end to the width of your visible tracks on your screen. In this case, it expanded it. If this was a very long production, it would shrink it all. And so you have this to see everything at one glance. So those are a few tips on how to customize your track settings when you're working in a project in CyberLink PowerDirector.